Hey, George, can you hear me okay?
Nice. Looks like the audio is good, George. I can see it patched through on the YouTube. So we're going to get started here with the AMA here in just a minute. So we learned from our last AMA that we need to record a local copy. So let me get that going. All right, that's working. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Solano with Mochimo. It's 2 p.m. on September 21st, 2019, and we are here today to do an AMA question and answer session about Mochimo, about our recent milestone or upcoming milestone, as well as the reason for some excitement that happened yesterday in the crypto community, specifically around quantum resistant currencies. And so without further ado, I am going to begin with some of the questions that we have posted to our live stream audio channel on Discord. The first question that we have is, explain how Google's recent non-announcement of quantum supremacy will affect the Mochimo project. So if you're not aware, yesterday it was leaked by the Financial Times that Google had achieved what they consider to be quantum supremacy. So quantum supremacy, in a nutshell, in this particular case, is demonstrating the ability of quantum computing devices to do things that conventional computers are not capable of doing, which is to say, some very specific instructions were run through a QC device, and it was able to produce an output that would take something like 10,000 years on a conventional computer. That was the achievement in a nutshell. It remains a task for Google engineers and other engineers in this space to produce general purpose universal computers that can do complex tasks in in much the same way as conventional computers can, which is to say, by way of arbitrary programmatic logic. But we have demonstrated the ability of these machines to do things that conventional computers can't, which is a huge step in the right direction, given that just a few years ago, people were saying that quantum computers don't exist, can't exist, error correction will never be up to par. You won't be able to do anything practicable with them for 50 years. And here we are in an arms race between Google and IBM and several other players to deliver functional, practical quantum computing devices. And we saw very, very much for the first time yesterday that quantum computers are real, are capable of doing things that conventional machines can't, and are taking all the right steps in all the right directions to a future where they challenge a lot of the core cryptography that secures crypto ecosystems and other ecosystems such as the internet, the World Wide Web, and your SSL socket layers that protect the security of your transactions to and from the websites you visit, among umpteen other potential attack surfaces for quantum computers when it comes to factoring or solving a discrete logarithm problem. So we're looking at a huge leap forward. That was a big deal. And how will it affect, so to answer the actual question, how will it affect the Mochimo project? We have been predicting the advent of quantum supremacy for some time. And this example is vindication in some ways for the trajectory that we have sort of been beating the drum about for the last nearly 3 years, which is to say that quantum computers are growing, and they're growing faster than anybody expected. They are essentially double exponential in growth, which is Nevin's law, which was mentioned on the previous AMA. So what we have is It's kind of a feather in the cap of this QR resistant crypto project where we said, look, guys, ECDSA is susceptible to attack by quantum computers. No, quantum computers aren't a myth. They're not some fantastical future tech. They are very much present tech. And the capabilities of those devices are growing in leaps and bounds faster even than what we saw with the original transistor revolution and Moore's law. We expect and continue to see the kind of growth that will yield the results that we are projecting, which is the idea that ECDSA should be broken in 2023, 2024 timeframe. So what it means for us is it's just another kind of like, flag post on the way to a post ECDSA world where Bitcoin is no longer Bitcoin. It might be something else, it might be some derivative currency that's been forked multiple ways to be post-quantum secure, but it won't be the network that exists today using the protocols that exist today. So very much, I think, a feather in the cap of the Mochimo project, and it continues to to validate one of the core reasons why we created this project in the first place. So next question. This is from Decrypt. How far along is the privacy feature, and are there any new details that can be given? During our birthday celebration AMA, which was on June 25th of this year, just shy of 90 days ago, we talked about version 2.5, which is a code version update that is very much under development and testing. And one of the benefits of v2.5 is a privacy layer that essentially makes it possible for a person to own the equivalent of a bearer certificate or bearer instrument on the Mochimo blockchain. And that bearer instrument comes into existence in such a way as it cannot be connected back to the Mochimo that originally created it. And likewise, when it is redeemed back into Mochimo that can be part of somebody's account, it is also untraceable. So we've created this abstraction layer in this certificate idea, and it's in testing as part of version 2.5. So how far along is it? Pretty far along. What I will say, though, is that 2.5 is something that's going to have to wait a bit, because we're in the process of getting connected to exchanges, which, as you guys saw, in this past month, we got listed on Qtrade, and likewise got accepted for listing on QBTC, which one of our moderators is working on. And so the phase that we're in as a project now is really supporting those third parties that want to integrate us, fleshing out the API, working on the wraparound features and functions of the crypto ecosystem. Like, we're working on the Ledger Nano integration right now. We have a very accomplished digital wallet programmer that is doing our mobile wallet right now. We're working on these things like the Illuminati mining pool, or IMP, which is just a subset of the original dev team got together and said, hey, we want to produce code that allows people to run mining pools, right? Because right now there's a few private pools, there's one major public pool, and then we've got this side project of a couple of the dev team members that are working on creating code that they will perform proof of concept, and they will develop a working pool, and then that code will be available to the public so that we can have many mining pools. And these things just serve, like the mobile wallet, the Ledger integration, the availability of mining pool software, integration of third parties, fleshing out the API. These are all things that strengthen the overall ecosystem around Mochimo. And so those things are sort of taking precedence right now. There's lots of really cool tech that's waiting in the wings that's being developed that will be eventually integrated in. But what we need to do is get through, for example, these exchange listings are complex enough undertakings without us introducing, say, a code fork, right? Because the exchanges then have to take a look at the code and decide if it's going to work for them. The miners have to look at it and approve it. The community has to come together as a matter of consensus and say, yes, we do want this privacy feature. And yes, the vast majority of the hash power on the network will support it. That's a long process. I can't just wave a wand and say, guys, we're doing this now. I don't have that authority in this system. I have only the ability to produce innovative code and say, hey guys, should we implement this? And if it looks like everybody will support it, then we have a conversation with the exchanges where we identify what their timeline is, right? Because we don't want to pull the rug out from under them. And so that release cycle becomes sort of elongated by the fact that we now are listed on multiple exchanges. I hope that answers your question. Privacy features there. It's waiting in the wings. It's not high priority at the moment because we have other technologies that we are working on, and also because we have the need to coordinate these things with multiple stakeholders. When do I think 2.5 will be released? I'm hoping to get this into beta before the end of the year. So the next question that we have is from MCM Mark, and it says, what are the possibilities of Bitcoin forks prior to quantum timeline? And can it make MCM irrelevant or less relevant? Why won't other projects, knowing this is coming, start to do something prior to the risk? And if we're going to be the king, are we saying that it's a 40-60% chance, or can we put a number on it? So there's a lot of questions there, and let's unravel them a piece at a time. And Bitcoin forks. When we started looking at block size on Bitcoin and recognized that things were having difficulty scaling on that network, not just because of TPS, but because of the number of transactions that we're putting in a block, there was a massively contentious series of community splinters. Everybody's trying to decide how they are going to fix the problem, and you ended up with multiple derivative currencies, each claiming to be the quote-unquote real Bitcoin. And that was for an elective fork to solve a problem that wasn't particularly pressing. So when we talk about the possibility of Bitcoin forks prior to this, advent of ECDSA breaking quantum computers, I think the likelihood of that occurring is extremely minimal, just based on the past behavior of that community. I will say that because while it is as yet not an imminent threat, in other words, where the vast majority of the community looks and says, well, we don't see quantum computers that can break ECDSA, so it's not a problem. There will be no traction, in my opinion, for any fork of the currency to address that issue, because we couldn't really agree on the SegWit thing, the segregated witness, and so at best you might have PQ Bitcoin or some other spin-off currency that won't receive a lot of attention or traction, right? And they might do that in advance of this thing, but they will not be Bitcoin. Okay, there will be a side fork based on Bitcoin that doesn't have the same momentum and user base, and they will be a separate entity up until that. Then, when the threat of QC breaking ECDSA becomes an imminent reality where people recognize the threat, what you're going to have is all of these factions within Bitcoin that are fighting to say, well, I'm the real Bitcoin, so I should get to decide how we address this threat. And then you'll see a lot of splintering, I think. And we'll be left with this contentious period where nobody really knows what the real Bitcoin is anymore. And we'll have massive amounts of hashing power on this network or that network. We'll have the original forks like Bitcoin Cash and its derivatives all fighting to claim supremacy in this Bitcoin space. And I expect that's going to be quite the cluster. So I don't really think that there's a high possibility of them being able to fork before it's a reality. And I think that after it's a reality, it's going to be super messy at best. And I think during that time period, those projects that had the foresight to create a properly post-quantum secure cryptocurrency are going to come into dominance. So why won't other projects, knowing that this is coming, start to do something prior to the risk? I think that they will, and I think that they should. I think that as with every considerable code version change, there are significant technical challenges and hurdles. And because they are their own decentralized networks, they have to overcome those things in much the same way that it's difficult for Bitcoin right now to justify the kind of disruption that forking into a post-quantum secure protocol would yield. Those currencies are going to be facing the same issues. So it's always much harder to change it once it's in motion than it is to build it the right way, like we did from the beginning. If we are trying to be king, are we saying it's a 40-60 chance, or we can't put a number on it? I don't think we can put a number on that. I want to say, oh yeah, absolutely, we're going to come to dominance, etc. But we can't predict the future to that extent. I know that it's an important and critical technology that's going to unseat Bitcoin as the leading currency. I know that we've done everything that we can to create an innovative currency that scales, that operates better, more smoothly, and with greater fidelity as a medium of exchange than Bitcoin. So it is my hope that when that time comes, people will be looking for that post-quantum secure currency and find our technology and latch onto and adopt it. So, and then the final piece of this question was, would it make Mochimo less relevant if Bitcoin somehow were able to fork? And the honest answer is yes, of course it would make Mochimo less relevant, since one of our major claims to fame is being a post-quantum secure cryptocurrency, and to my understanding, the first one to the market that is both decentralized and post-quantum secure. So yeah, that would reduce relevance slightly, but you have to remember that there are a number of other important innovations that make Mochimo a standout. For example, the fact that we have a perpetually small blockchain size, and so we've solved that particular issue of scale, that you can spin up new nodes very quickly, that we are able to process transactions orders of magnitude faster than Bitcoin natively, and then very nearly to the scale of the Visa processing network as a matter of extension using our multi-destination transactions. We have built something that is better capable of serving as digital money. And so we're going to continue to beat that drum no matter how relevant the post-quantum secure portion of our network may be. So, less relevant, but certainly not irrelevant. And also, again, it's just a matter of time and adoption. We're in this funny place where we didn't do the ICO and collect all the money that the 2017 crop of scam coin and vaporware projects did, right? And so our adoption trajectory is not boosted by the captive audience of bag holders, of tens of thousands of people who bought into an ICO, right? And we also don't have the kind of social media presence that brings, just natively by virtue of having done the ICO or the airdrop or those things that are actually contrary to U.S. securities law. Those things provide momentum to projects that really ought not to have them, and so we don't take the benefit of those things. The other thing that we don't take the benefit of is the money that comes with those ICOs, right? So what you have are people who collect large sums of money while promising the world to people and then maybe delivering. But what they get to do is they get to take that money and turn around and buy hype and marketing with it. So we didn't do those things. So the trajectory of our adoption and of our community growth has been very much a natural organic growth, right? So not as big as some projects, but we are slowly accruing that momentum, and it goes faster the faster it goes. That's just the nature of these kinds of social networks. The more people that know about Mochimo, the faster more new people know about Mochimo until you reach some kind of critical mass. And I think that's going to happen either way, is the point of this long-winded response, which is to say our relevance is growing with time, and I'm quite confident of that. So the next question from Candlelate or Candlelatte, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this. It says, the privacy feature is very attractive, but there's no news since last time you talked about it. Any updates? So we already did that. We answered that earlier. And then the second question was, did anybody take up the ledger integration and mobile wallet bounties? And yes, they did. So we have one accomplished engineer that is working on ledger integration. He's a quite capable, primarily DevOps engineer and an integration engineer. So it's kind of perfect for him to be integrating Mochimo into the ledger. So I'm happy to see that happening. And then we have a mobile wallet developer that has produced mobile wallets for other cryptocurrencies and done so very well, that has already produced functioning applications for us to test. So those things are happening. They are live. I don't actually have a clear update on the ledger integration thing. I can circle back around and communicate that to the community in the near future. So the next question that we have is, I'm going to drop that, sorry. So the next question that we have is from Dusko, and it says, are Mochimo wallet passwords quantum resistant? Can anyone make a quantum resistant password? So I think that when people say Mochimo wallet passwords, they're probably talking about the Mojo wallet, and your password is as strong as its complexity in that case. The things that quantum computers are good at are not going to facilitate the cracking of the password with the encryption techniques that we use in either Mojo or in the command line wallet. So the follow-on question was, can anyone make a quantum resistant password? And can anyone make a quantum resistant password? So I don't really understand this question, because the idea of the security of a password is dependent on the underlying encryption technology and whether or not it is susceptible to attack by the sorts of factoring abilities that quantum computers have, or by their ability to solve the discrete logarithm problem. And so it really is a question of whether the schema that is protecting that password is vulnerable in that way. So George, I'm just going to pause for a moment and ask you on Discord. It seems like our landscaping people are here, and they are mowing the lawn outside of this window. I can't tell how disruptive it is to the audio. Can you give me a heads up on whether we need to pause or tell those guys to just continue what they're doing? Okay. It looks like the audio is fine. It's just very loud and distracting for me, but I will work through it. So the next question that we had is, how safe are we from 51% attacks? Right now we have pool miners who have the ability to, I think, aggregate enough mining power that, were they operating some custom version of the node software that could dictate to people the shape of the ledger, that they might be able to pull something like that off. I'm just being candid here. It's just the nature of being a nascent cryptocurrency network, that while we as yet have one major pool and just a few minor pools, that the majority of the hashing power is flowing through one pool. So I will tell you that I am aware of the code that they are running, and that it is not in any way able to coordinate an attack on the network as it stands. And I'm aware of the business practices of that particular pool, and so I have confidence that we don't have to worry about a 51% attack from that vector. Now, in the general, a 51% attack is possible even against coins as large as Bitcoin, if there are sufficient resources thrown at them. So I will say, to the extent that Mochimo is a proof of work currency, that we are as susceptible as any other currency that has a network of our size in terms of hashes per second. I wish I could give you a more comforting answer than that, but it's the nature of the POW space. And while we are growing, it is possible for an interested and very wealthy party to attack the network. So, as a follow-on, the question continued. We removed FPGAs, but hashing power can be rented these days quite easily. Are any plans in the pipeline regarding network strengthening in this area? Network strengthening happens every single day. If you watch the difficulty metric on our block explorer, you will see each day the average difficulty rises slightly. And what that means is that more and more miners are joining the network, and more hashes per second are occurring, and therefore much more work needs to be performed in order to create the possibility of a 51% compromise. Keep in mind what the back end of a 51% attack is. In other words, what do people get for that? And what people typically get from a 51% attack is the opportunity to do a double spend, right? So the exposure isn't one of existential risk, but rather creates the risk for somebody that was using or trading in the currency. So I don't see the exposure as being high. I don't see any actors in the space who have the technical capabilities to do that. We are growing each day in terms of the number of miners and the number of hashes per second occurring, and that is what secures the network. And there is not any particular plan in the pipeline regarding strengthening beyond the bounties that we already offer for people bringing their friends into the fold to begin mining, which is a successful program that seems to be attracting more miners to us. And that is the best that I can offer about that. Next question was, did we have any success with the Trade Ogre application? So just understand that when it comes to exchange listing, we are, as a project, not in the business of negotiating exchange listing agreements. It's not a thing that we can do because it implies an investment contract according to the most rigorous interpretations of current securities laws. In other words, if we were to say to an exchange, hey, we'd like you to list us because you're going to get a bunch of trading volume based on Mochimo. What that says to them is you can depend on us to maintain the health and adoption in the network, and you can depend on us to drive current and future volumes and keep everything healthy. Meaning, it implies that there is a centralized control of both development and valuation of the currency, right? So this is kind of a big caveat, but it's something I wanted to say about this particular question because we get questions like that often. When are you guys going to apply for this? And when are you going to apply for that? And what's the status of this exchange? We are here to help exchanges and any third party that wants to integrate or interoperate with the Mochimo network. I can promise you have all of my attention if that is a thing that you want to do, because I will work hard to ensure that my technical knowledge can go to the benefit of enhancing the overall ecosystem. That's all I can say. I'm not going to be reaching out to exchanges and saying, hey, I want you to list Mochimo, and I'm going to guarantee you XYZ volume. And that's what they're looking for. And that's problematic for us. So what happens, as in the case of Trade Ogres, we have interested community members that say, well, I really want us to be listed on this exchange, so I'm going to go down that path. And what they do is they bring the exchange to us. They say, hey, this Mochimo is a great project. We want you to list them. And when the exchange reaches out to us, then we begin that dialogue where we discuss, exactly how to use the API and how to do the technical integration part and provide whatever support that we need. Give them a dedicated moderator on the Discord channel and things like that. That's the extent to which that we engage on these things. And that's strictly as a matter of adhering to the regulatory requirements that are imposed upon us by the US SEC. So, did we have any success with the Trade Ogre applications? Trade Ogre did a poll. I think it was a Twitter poll, and we had a massive number of users suggesting Mochimo as a listing, a potential listing. We did not receive feedback from Trade Ogre. I have, however, spoken to it's probably been a good dozen exchanges that have been brought to me. And we get a lot of this communication back from exchanges, and it goes like this. They'll say, well, we only list ERC20 tokens, or we only list coins that are forks of the following currencies. Your Bitcoin forks, your Monero forks, and things like that. And what we've learned in this process and communicating with these exchanges is that by and large they are interested in doing things that are easy when it comes to integrating new currencies, and and that will bring them volume without them having to put forth any effort. And you can hardly blame them, right? Because there are so many different cryptocurrencies out there that they can expand their portfolio by writing a few lines of code and adopting some code that they already have for another currency to this fork, and then they get to absorb additional volume from that user base. And so that's what we see. Now, we do see some purists in the crypto exchange space that claim to value cryptocurrency conceptually as either a philosophy of money or a political tool for change. Those seem to be few and far between. But when we encounter those people that seem to have an ethic around the expansion of cryptocurrency in general, those are the ones that seem very excited about Mochimo and about listing this. So again, they are few and far between. We do talk to them whenever they are brought to us, um, and that's the extent of how we can engage to exchange listing applications. So we have another question here. It says, finally, can we be the next Bitcoin if we all know who Stack Overflow is and Satoshi still remains a mystery? And can we call the smallest units of Mochimo stacks like there are Satoshis? It never sat right with me that there was this mystery around the people who were Satoshi. Um, I don't like the lack of transparency that exists in the cryptocurrency space in general. And that's just another example. You have a lot of these projects out there that they don't tell people what they're doing, what they're about. They have control over large quantities of coins that were gained through ninja mining or through pre-mining, and don't account for those things. They do private placements without communicating that to the public. They acquire money after generating hype, and then don't use that money to return value to the people that invested in the project. All of those things and that lack of transparency has been one of the things that we were intent on fixing as part of creating the Mochimo cryptocurrency. Uh, and and part of that is me just put my ugly mug out there for everybody to see and say, this is who I am. This is my background. These are the things I've already built. Like when we talk about the network architecture projects that I was involved in before the cryptocurrency network project that I'm in now, it's all very transparent. There's no other project that I'm aware of where you can go to a wiki page and see how they've spent every single pre-mine coin that they claimed for their foundation. That's a thing that we do, and we do it as a matter of transparency because we believe in that. And so it's funny when we get these comparisons to Bitcoin. Just yesterday, somebody was saying to me, "Well, you did a pre-mine, and I think our developers got 4.5% or something like that. 4.55% of the coins went to the developers. You did a pre-mine, so that makes your coin somehow uh, less ethical." And I told those people, look, we were very transparent from day one. We didn't ask anybody to invest in the currency. We didn't tout its capabilities before we produced them. We literally built it first and then told the world about it. And then we told them all along, this is what we're going to do from a pre-mine perspective. And I said, and yet with respect to Bitcoin, although it is the industry leader, people never second guess, where did all of those coins that Satoshi had possession of? How did one person have 1,000,000 Bitcoin? And or more, as the case may be. Oh well, that's solo mining. In the modern parlance, we call that ninja mining, which is to say, creating a project, and while there's as yet little interest in or adoption of it, just mining the hell out of it, so that you hold millions of it before anybody else sees the value. I don't see that as more transparent or more ethical than what we did, which was taking a small portion of the coins especially in consideration of the fact that we knew we weren't doing an ICO or anything like that. So going off on a tangent there, but the point is, this is another way that Mochimo is better than the Bitcoin project. Is there is no mystery about who we are. We put ourselves out there, our LinkedIn profiles, warts and all. This is who we are. We're proud of what we've built. This is what it is, not what it will be, and we're not asking you to buy it. So as far as can we call the smallest unit of Mochimo stacks, I kind of like our team member George named the smallest unit of Mochimo before anybody could stop him, and he called it Satoshis, which I thought was pretty funny because we are Mochimo. Our smallest unit is not a Satoshi, it's a Satoshi. I think it's cute. I'd like to keep it. We don't have to call them stacks. I think that's a little bit silly. But again, I don't really control that sort of thing. And so here we have the very last question. It's been a rather quick AMA. The reason why it's been quick is usually there's a bit of banter between Terry and I, and he is currently traveling. So I didn't get a chance to sit down with him and do our typical back and forth. And so I will answer this question. Do we have a CMC listing time estimate? If you're not aware, CMC is CoinMarketCap. And one of the things that they do is they list cryptocurrency and exchange projects. And they list all of the vital statistics and track those things via their API, collecting statistics about volume and price and things like that, so that people can easily, at a glance, get a sense of a project's fundamentals. In order to be listed on CoinMarketCap, you have to have a currency that's trading on an exchange that is listed on CoinMarketCap. So we have only recently done that. We now are trading on an exchange that's listed on CMC, and their application is it's in depth. Let's put it that way. They asked for everything other than my blood type and a stool sample. It's quite involved. So I know that George is working on that. I haven't gotten an update on that. We talked about it on our last team call, where he was asking for additional information from me. So, it'll happen when it happens, but I'm happy to say that we are on Coin Paprika. We are on CoinGecko, which are services that provide the same basic benefit. We are on the Blockfolio app, which is another avenue to get those things. So there is public awareness in other channels where you can get that information, and taking that next step of being on CoinMarketCap is just adding a little bit more validity to the project. And I expect that's going to happen in the near future. It's going to be a matter of weeks, not months, if that helps. So with that, I realized during our introduction that I failed to mention what upcoming milestone we had that prompted this whole AMA in the first place. So that's my bad. Normally I'd have Terry here to keep me straight. For those of you who don't know, Terry is Tech Hobo on our Discord channel. So here's the reason why we're doing this AMA. Last year in June of 2018, we launched the cryptocurrency network, Mochimo, and it began doing its thing. It solves blocks. People transact coins and buy, sell, and trade and do things. And it just kept doing its thing, and the blocks added up. There was, first there was 1,000, and then 10,000, 20,000. We are just now, within the next day, I believe, maybe two at the outside, we will be hitting our 100,000th block. And I thought it was a good opportunity for us to talk and answer some questions from the community, to give people some updates about what's going on. And I'm really proud of this network. I'm proud of the fact that every day it keeps doing the thing that we set it out to do, that we designed a thing that has remained stable and consistent, that is now hitting its projected block solve times like clockwork, with the average number of blocks per day being right at what we predicted based on the original algorithms that we wrote. And it does it day and night, while we're sleeping, while we're not paying attention. People are able to use Mochimo to buy, sell, and trade things. And that's what we set out to do. And the fact that it's now done it 100,000 times, I think is a huge accomplishment. And so that's why we decided to have this AMA. So George, when you edit this in post, can you go ahead and move that to the front? Anyway, that's it for me, guys. That's all the questions that we have. As usual with our AMA, we are going to do a little trivia on the Discord. So if you're not on the Discord, if you're watching on the YouTube or listening via the Twitter feed, please join us on the Discord channel. We will be doing some trivia challenges, things that are related to Mochimo, and typically we give out little bounty prizes here and there. Sometimes we do T-shirts. You never know. But join us over there. We'll get that started at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is in about 20 minutes. And thank you everybody for going along on this ride with us. This cryptocurrency adventure, I think, just gets more interesting every day, and I'm really proud of and happy to see this community continues to grow. And I think that we will see the kind of adoption that we hope for. And this, quantum supremacy thing that just happened is just another signpost along the way to that eventual future where Mochimo is a dominant currency. And that's it for us, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
We don't want to hear it. Hard to get people to actually watch a lot more people watch it. Please, can you order a brief? Wait, Alex, come on.